Let's cross to London now and catch up with former Foreign Minister Alexander Downer. Thanks for joining us again, Alexander. I've got to ask you first off about this explosion in Beirut. Death toll approaching 80 now. We know at least one Australian killed. We expect that death toll to rise as they pick through the rubble. What's your reading of the chances of this just being an industrial accident rather than perhaps something more sinister?
Well, I don't think in one sense it's anything more sinister from what I hear. It doesn't look as though it was a terrorist attack or a military attack of some kind. But I do think there'll be huge political consequences flowing from it in a country which is inherently very unstable politically. Why was so much ammonium nitrate, if that is what it was? Why was it stored in the port, which itself is so close to the centre of Beirut? Why such huge quantities? Why the risks involved? Was there corruption, any corruption here? Was there incompetence on the part of the government? So personally, I think there'll be very fierce political consequences that will flow from this. There'll be a lot of debate about it. And in a country so unstable politically anyway, this won't be helpful, apart from the tragedy of the loss of human life and the injuries.
Yeah, there's all those practical considerations, but when you talk about something sinister, even if it was a complete accident in a storage facility, is it likely that large quantities of ammonium nitrate in that country might be there for purposes other than peaceful purposes, for various entities, Hezbollah and others, making bombs?
Yeah, and why would it all be stored there?
Yeah.
Yes, of course, there'd be plenty of it, and there'd be plenty of bomb-making equipment around Lebanon. There's no doubt about that. But yes, their storage of it will turn out to be the huge issue, I suspect. And why all stored together? What's behind all of this? So none of us knows the answer to that at the moment, but I suspect huge debate will flow from that.
Let's move on to China now and Scott Morrison's latest intervention. He spoke via Zoom to the Aspen Security Forum, a think tank headed up by Condoleezza Rice, I think, and he made some strong and sensible comments about China. Let's just have a listen.
We have welcomed China's rise as a major economic partner. It has been great for our economy and the global economy in the Indo-Pacific region. But with the economic rise does come economic and broader strategic responsibility. China has a role to enhance regional and global stability, commensurate with its new status. Together, China and the United States have a special responsibility to uphold what we'll describe as the common set of rules that build an international society. Now, that means respecting international law and the peaceful resolution of disputes, including trade disputes. It means a commitment to rules-based economic interaction. Neither coercion nor abdication from the international system is the way forward.
Scott Morrison there. Now, Alexander Downer, that just sounds all so sensible and reasonable, but that will again be seen in Beijing as us pushing up against their interests.
I think it's hard for them to argue against that, and I think what Scott Morrison has done without showing any sense of partisanship here is show real leadership, not just in Australia, which you'd expect, but real leadership in the Indo-Pacific region and beyond, particularly leadership for democracies. To be brutally frank, the comments coming out of the Trump administration are nothing like as clear and consistent and strongly based in international law as they are coming out of Scott Morrison's mouth. So what I think he's done here is made a very balanced and a very reasonable comment. Of course, we welcome the rise of China, the huge achievement in reducing poverty. Actually, they've taken in the last 30 or 40 years 600 million people out of absolute poverty. It's an extraordinary achievement. And it's been great, the rise of China, as Scott Morrison says, for the Australian economy. But when powers rise, they must stick within the international legal system. They can play their part in changing the laws, and China should be able to play its part. But they shouldn't try to change the status quo through the use of force, because that's going to lead to fear And in the end, that's going to lead to reactions, and who knows where that could lead. So
Yeah,
I thought it was a very sensible statement by the Prime Minister.
He's framing China as a partner and wanting it to be a responsible partner, whereas, as you say, elements of the Trump administration, notably the president himself, framed China as the enemy. Interestingly, on the back of this, Scott Morrison has called the state premiers to a high-level security briefing on China, its interests, its activities in this country. That's an unusual step, and I'd just like to get your thoughts on that.
Well, I think, first of all, you're right about President Trump and his administration. The problem with the way they characterise China is as an enemy, and that isn't the right way, in my view, to characterise China. It's not exactly correct, that. And I think the much more nuanced and balanced way Scott Morrison has done it is the way we would hope the Americans would go in the future. So, we'll just have to see. And
briefing the state premiers on, I suppose, the threats of foreign interference and the like. It's an understandable move, but unusual.
So this, first of all, is making great use of this new institution, the National Cabinet, and extending its remit, which was pretty much just coronavirus. And so briefing the premiers means a bit more than that. It means that state governments have to take action as well to protect themselves from cyber attacks, to be part of the national cyber security defence mechanism. So it makes perfect sense. And I mean, of course, in the past, when we didn't have a national cabinet system, nevertheless, state premiers and state governments were briefed about these issues, but more on a one-by-one basis. So doing it through that mechanism is eminently sensible.
Now, there's one ambassadorship that you still hold, and I hold a similar one. That is for the Adelaide Crows Football Club. I have my trusty mug here every day. Do you happen to know what the anniversary was for our club yesterday?
No, I don't actually. I didn't catch up with that.
Sadly, it was 1 year since their last win. So I'm hoping you encourage them to move on.
Yes, well, so they've been through great upheaval, haven't they, over that training program and changes in coaches and players leaving, and
onwards and upwards.
Not been a happy period, but yeah, I mean, look. We got, as Crows supporters, to hang in there, loyally continue to support them, and pray that this season we won't end up winless.